Call to order, Town of Prescott Valley Work Study, March 3rd, 2022. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kinzinger.
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Here.
Councilmember Hepperly.
Here.
Councilmember Schumacher.
Present.
Councilmember Packard.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hunt.
Here.
Mayor Plaguda.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Go to item 2A, software purchase, citizen portal, and agenda management system. Mr. Danner, welcome. We had God's spotlight on you for a moment there.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I am very excited tonight to talk about something that we wanted to discuss with you. For the past little while, Gilbert and I have been talking about our strategic goals and how IT can improve some things to fit in with those strategic goals. And so we started talking about our public-facing software that we have. And one of the biggest ones that we came up with that we wanted to look at improving was our work order system. So right now we currently have a system for the public to put in requests for service, such as potholes or weeds in the neighbors' yards or whatever. That system has become increasingly unstable.
And if I can just...
Yes.
Do we normally have someone on the computer? Is this something we're normally doing? I want to make sure we're
Mr. Mayor, yes, this will be part of the presentation.
Excellent.
He'll be piping in just a second.
Awesome.
Sorry, we have a
I just want to make sure you were aware that someone's there. And,
we have a Zoom call after this for a few minutes. So our current system has become increasingly unstable. It doesn't always work properly. It's also pretty hard to use. So we started looking at what we could do to improve that system specifically. At that time, staff and I started looking at various systems that do citizen request management systems, and we started focusing on three systems that have a citizen request system and also a public portal that will run on the web, and it will also run on a mobile device. And we can do everything through that mobile device, whether it be the citizen request system. We can have links on there for bill paying. We could do any number of things. And I'll give you an example of one of these in just a second. So I started looking around and looking at municipalities of same size, maybe larger, and we came up with three systems that we wanted to look at. We looked at a system from Rock Solid, a system called SeeClickFix, and one called GoGov. And as you see in front of you, these are used by various municipalities of our size or larger. So at that time, I formed a team made up of representatives from all of our departments, basically, and we sat through some demos of all these systems. And as we were viewing the demos, we pretty much focused on two systems that seemed to be best to meet our needs, which were Rock Solid and SeeClickFix. SeeClickFix is a system that is run by Civic Plus, which is who we use for our website. So they've got some built-in advantages there of staff being able to have a single sign-on and that kind of thing. It's a nice system, works very well. I think it would meet our needs. But also, as we were looking at this, we looked at Rock Solid. Rock Solid's system, very nice as well. We also, at the same time, were looking at examples of these systems in other cities. I'll give you one example that you can actually go to on your mobile device. If you go to the Google Play Store or the App Store and you look up My Surprise, this is the city of Surprise. This is their app that they use. Surprise is one of the customers of Rock Solid. We were very impressed with Surprise's site and some of the other sites that were used by Rock Solid as well. So we were kind of taking into account the demos as well as what we could see with our own eyes. Also, Rock Solid has a major benefit of being very well integrated with GIS. And Larry's here, and he could answer any questions you might have on that part of it. But it's very well integrated with GIS. They can take our own data and use it within the system, which is very nice. And then also their reporting capabilities are very nice for Rock Solid, better than any of the other ones we looked at. So if you needed a report of how many potholes were fixed during the year or something like that. They have some very easy to use reports. So that was another major benefit that we saw. So at that point, we had pretty much focused on Rock Solid, and at that same time, we found out that Rock Solid also has an agenda system called PrimeGov. What's a little bit funny is that the current CEO of Rock Solid is the former CEO of Granicus. Granicus is our current system. Our town clerk has been, I'd say, less than happy with Granicus lately. Their customer service has gotten a lot worse. Their system is problematic at times. So we started looking at this as well. Rock Solid off this PrimeGov system, I think Fatima would agree, has some really nice features. It's got some additional features that Granicus doesn't have right now, such as the ability for you guys to request to speak, for the public to request to speak, for the public to go in earlier than the meeting, and instead of maybe filling out that pink sheet over there, they can actually just jump on their phone through the other system that we're looking at and request to speak during that meeting. So there's some really nice benefits there as well. So in our discussions with Rock Solid, they've actually are giving us a discount if we do both systems, and that's why I'm bringing both systems to you today. The really good news is that the PrimeGov system annual cost is much less than Granicus, which is great, and the cost for the OneView system is just lower than the other two that we looked at as well. So it's not only the best system in my mind for what we're looking for, but it's also less expensive. So that's really nice. So at this time, what I'd like to do is I have on the phone with us Tom Duncan, Eric Sickinger, and Jeffrey Johnson from Rock Solid. They're just going to give you a quick little less than 10-minute presentation about their system, show you a little high-level overview of the system, and hopefully you'll like that. And then I'll come back for a quick sec, and then we'll be done.
Casey, thank you very much. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Excellent. My name's Tom Duncan. Great intro from Casey. I also was on the ground floor at Granicus. So I started at Granicus in 2000 when we started the company, and I left in 2015. And that's a big reason why I came back and followed Tom Spangler, the former founder of Granicus, and now the CEO at Rock Solid and PrimeGov. Jeffrey, you can change the slide here. Tom and I both felt that the market and municipalities like yourself was underserved and looking for more customization, more flexibility, and they just weren't getting it from other vendors. Customer support had gone downhill, and innovation had gone downhill with all of the acquisitions occurring, and lack of support for the city manager and the city clerk's offices. So we came back together, and we formed Rock Solid, and Rock Solid has 3 product lines in which we'll talk about today. One is the OneView solution, which is our 311 services solution. So the one that Casey mentioned where he had viewed in Surprise, Arizona. It helps with the ability to, if you have a pothole in your street, you want to take a picture of that, you want to upload it and send it in, it automatically goes to a back-end CRM. And then can be delegated and worked on by staff, and messaging can go out to the public, is just one example. PrimeGov, that's the agenda public meeting management tool, so your ability to create agendas. So Fatima's job in helping her with better collaboration, better formatting tools, Office 365 integration that's going to help with accuracy with the agendas, and then the live meeting management portion for streaming and for minute taking, and then for the council yourselves, the ability to vote and to move, and for the chair to call on folks. And then we have a solution called Streamline, and part of that solution is our public records requests tool, which is very interesting. And that's not something that you're looking at today, but it is something that if you ever need in the future, we do have. And it rounds us out for our resident engagement tools. And just to give you an example, the city of San Antonio, albeit a large city, They were one of the first to work with us and bring together the PrimeGov and the OneView solutions. They had some very similar challenges that Prescott Valley has, and we were able to provide them with tools to help with their transparency to the public, improve the collaboration and the formatting and the publishing of the agenda internally, and of course the 311 and CRM tools as well. I'm going to hand this over to Eric Sickinger. He's going to talk a bit about the specifics on the 311 and CRM.
Very good. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. And hello, Council. I'm a council member myself in a small town in South Carolina out here. So appreciate the opportunity to present. So the 311 and the CRM tool really is composed of two main elements. It's the OneView Citizen Portal. So that's the way that residents are going to connect with the city on a mobile app, like the reference that Casey made to Surprise. Also has a web widget that can go on the website and offers multiple ways for residents to connect with the city and submit concerns and complaints, and gives you as a city the opportunity to have a branded app that is really designed with us. The other side is the CRM, and that's where all the workflows and all of the intelligent tools come in, so that as residents make complaints or raise concerns, we can help automatically get those to the right people. And on top of that, asking questions and double checking that it's within the right boundaries, just to make sure that when staff get issues, that we've already done the dirty work and crossed and checked the submission. So the CRM, the back office, again, I talked about the mobile app. We really see that as the opportunity for Prescott Valley to have a kind of extend your city services into a native mobile app that residents can have downloaded at the ready, so that if they have a question, if they see a problem, they already have the app. They don't have to go run to Facebook. They can just open up the app and snap a picture and submit it to the city. With that service request tool, what we really wanted to do overall was help modernize and overall improve the quality of life for residents in Prescott Valley. Help manage issues from residents in an efficient way, track tickets, and with messaging, the ability to send out alerts and communicate with residents. And so that way, town staff and communications can send messages to residents based on their location or interests that they may have. And then last here, on the service request side, I know how important it is that when a resident has a problem that it gets sent to the right place. And this is really the bread and butter of our suite. And the process for residents to submit issues and concerns to the city is simple and easy. Maybe 30 seconds from start to finish. We cross-check and make sure that we're not getting duplicates of the same issue, and they can access it pretty much anywhere, from a phone to a desktop computer. And that about rounds it up.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. So another part of our solution that's going to help is our public meeting management. So PrimeGov is a scalable single platform solution for all of Prescott Valley's needs. First, we're going to have our agenda automation. So Fatima is going to be using this for the pre-meeting process. So submitting forms, looking to see where an item is, and then also publishing the agenda. The second one is going to be meeting management. So during the meeting process, Fatima will be using this to capture timestamps, roll calls, minutes, motions, votes, and actions of the council members during a meeting. And then our committee manager. This will allow you to manage the positions of all of the boards and commissions. Community engagement, so folks will be able to comment on items, request to speak, and then our video streaming. So we stream to YouTube as well as any social media platform. I also wanted to show you the public meeting portal. So this is where internal folks as well as the public of Prescott Valley are able to find the item, identify the item, review any minutes or voting that was done on that item. It has a full text search. You can filter through meetings. We have Google Translate of over 150 languages. And then the agency branding, so we can customize it to your color and the logo of Prescott Valley. Also, this is our council view. So this is what you council members will see. You can make notes, you can request to speak, you can vote, as well as the voting results. We have our public display. So this is what the public of Prescott Valley would see in the chamber. You can see agenda items, voting results, stuff like that. And then finally, our video and live streaming. So you can use it from a mobile device, the time stamping ability, which will really help Fatima take her minutes. There's also a compact encoder, very little, and you can, it's mobile friendly, and we can also produce that 1080p HD video. Are there any questions?
Sir, is at the end of a month, can you run a report with this? So council would be able to get like a council report on how many, issues were resolved through the app. Is that possible? Or is that something that happens? Does that make sense? We find out that there was 5 people that reported potholes this month.
Oh, through the CRM system?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. The reporting capabilities are great in the system. We can do all kinds of different reports for whatever you want. You can break it down by the type of call, whether it's potholes or whatever. You can break
public
it down.
safety, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
That'll be able
definitely.
to-
And you can break it down as much time as you want to look at, et cetera. All kinds of different stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, both solutions, work together to provide very in-depth reporting for a council view, for an executive view, and then for the clerk's view as well in other departments.
And sir, I don't know if you're able to answer this or not, but we referenced the city of Surprise having this app. How many residents from Surprise have it downloaded onto their phones?
That's a great question, Eric. I don't know if you have that off the tip of your.
I don't have it off the top of my head. What we find is traditionally after an app is launched and we work with a city, that we share a plan with communications on how to best effectively share that information and do what we call channel shift, shifting people from just automatically assuming they should pick up the phone or message one of you on Facebook or Nextdoor. And so it's a shift is really the goal, that we help shift some of that conversation, but I don't know those numbers off the top of my head.
I just didn't know in reference how many people are downloading it or then are just not using the download and just calling in like old school ways. I just didn't know what the ratio there, or you're seeing in different communities throughout the country.
I don't have a number for you, but I actually did have about an hour-long conversation with the IT representative from Surprise, and he says that they love the system and it gets used a lot.
Awesome.
So
Good.
I again don't have a number, but he
And it
did
is
say
certainly
that
a
it gets used
communication thing. It's something new, something different. It would have to be pushed out
Right.
over a series of time. But
And they have assured us, Rock Solid has assured us that they will work with us to market this
Gotcha.
to help get it out there.
excellent. Vice Mayor?
Yes, a couple questions, Casey. The 24/7 streaming,
Yes.
that is just in case people get up in the middle of the night and want to look at stuff?
Yeah, that we currently have 24/7 streaming of Channel 56, and that's basically just to get the same what that we have now, same ability.
Perfect. And then I want to thank you personally, because you have Gilbert gave you this and you ran with it, and I know it was a team approach, but you did an awesome job. And
Well, as I said when I first got up here, I'm very excited about this because I've always wanted people to use the system we have, but the system we have has just been inadequate for a while now. So I think this is going to be just awesome, and I think our citizens are going to love it.
And it's very,
I'll echo that. Casey has been splendid to work with, just very quick to respond, and we've tried to obviously show what our customer supports can be like and do the same. But he's been a pleasure. Casey, you've been a pleasure to work with.
Thank you.
and it's very transparent, and it's, very communicative, hits our goals, and I'm just really excited. I've been wanting this for a long time, and I got to give Gilbert kudos too, because this was on my list when he came in. And I'm disappointed to hear about Granicus customer service, because I've used them in other communities, and but I'm glad we found something for Fatima, because she's very important too. What is the cost going to be to break the contracts with Granicus and whatever else we have to break?
So the CRM system is about a 2-month process, from what I've been told. So that we can, if you were to approve, we can start now and probably get it done before the next fiscal year even starts. The PrimeGov system takes about 6 months, which means that we'll probably have to pay Granicus for we're hoping about 3 months worth of their service.
But so we're month to month with them, we don't have to pay any penalties?
Well, we're going to ask them, I think, if we can go month to month for those 3 months, but they'll probably say that we need to pay them 3 months, a quarter, I would assume.
So it looks like this is kind of a wash, like it's not going to be any extra money.
It's actually one of the things that I brought up down at the bottom there that you might see is that in being able to get rid of some of the modules that we currently pay for with our HTE system that have either been replaced already, are being replaced by the business license system that you approved, or will be replaced by hopefully this if you approve it, we're saving $26,000 a year annually for that. And then getting rid of Granicus will save about $28,000 annually. So actually, I think we're coming out ahead on this, if my calculations are correct.
And some of the items that you have listed for 22, 23 are one-time, I see.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Rock Solid has been really good working with us to let us pay for a prorated subscription fee while we're getting the system in place, and then also a $1,000 one-time fee for the CRM system, but then to pay for the one-time fees for the PrimeGov system next fiscal year. So I've already put that in the budget that you guys will be looking at.
So in your opinion, when will be the first time that an app can take a picture in Prescott Valley? June, July?
I would say we're in beginning of March, probably May, sometime in May or beginning of June, hopefully. I would say that we will, there's going to be obviously some configuration to the system and getting it set the way we want it, but it should be pretty quick after that. And Steve Zarek has also been very helpful in working out the contracts with Rock Solid already, so everything's ready to go for next week if you give me the approval tonight to go forward.
So that money we spent for cameras and Facebook Live and everything are compatible with this system?
Definitely, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Casey, I think I read that it's a 5-year renewal contract. Is that correct?
The agreement that we're going to do with the OneView product is a 4-year agreement, and that's how we were able to get the really good pricing of $18,250 a year. It was just we'll have that for each of the next 4 years, which is very nice. I don't have any doubts that the system's going to meet our needs for those 4 years. They only go year to year on the PrimeGov system, so therefore that one will be a 5% increase, as most software is each year.
Also, on the public meeting portal, we often have surveys. Will this be able to accommodate surveys and show us results?
Rock Solid, I'll let you guys answer that. There's no...
Yeah, I can answer that. So specifically, we do not have a survey tool. That is something that we are looking at. Would the use case be just surveys out to the public on specific items or specific projects?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting tool. We've actually been looking at a few different companies, and we've been talking about it internally on how we want to incorporate something like that into our citizen engagement suite, which currently includes public comments. So you can't allow the public to comment on an agenda item prior to the meeting, and then our request to speak tool that's good for both the council yourselves and for members that are coming into the chamber that they could use as a kiosk/computer in order to request to speak. Survey is something we are looking at. It is not technically on our roadmap, but we are looking at through acquisition and as well as possible roadmap item.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Danner?
I have a question.
Any other questions for Rock Solid before I let them?
Councilwoman Heppley.
This might be for Rock Solid. Is there a capability for push notifications? So if there was something that needed to, like, for instance, with the water in Mingus West?
Yes, definitely. Part of this, what we're getting is a messaging suite with Rock Solid. And with that, we can actually, and this is where Larry is going to be really involved, is we can geocode what we're sending out, so we can send out a specific message just to the people in Mingus West or just to people in some other area, and Larry can do that through the GIS system. And because of the great integration that they have, that will be easy to do.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Danner? Sir, thank you. Gentlemen with online, we appreciate you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate the partnership. Thank you.
Moving on to item 2B, Glassford Hill Regional Park and Preserve. Mr. Judy and Mr. Davidson, will you both be up here?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm just going to kick this off real quick. And Mr. Danner, who did an awesome job at teeing up some exciting stuff, is leading right into another really exciting topic, which I'm going to preview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Judy. So when we met back a number of months ago for the council's strategic plan initiative, we specifically, the council talked about one of the specific initiatives is quality of life, and in there the council really wanted to make sure, and it's based on a lot of input that you guys have been receiving from residents from across this community, of how do we create more connectivity, how do we preserve open space. So our team has been working, our internal Prescott Valley team, on how are we going to accomplish this. So we actually, as we look around our community, we have an incredible asset right here as our kind of front yard, backyard, however you want to describe it, and that's Glassford Hill. So we started a conversation with the with City of Prescott, and actually the county also has come to the table. So Chairwoman Mallory is here as well. So all three jurisdictions have come together to begin to talk about this incredible opportunity of how do we preserve this space and then turn it into an incredible community asset. So that is what we want to share with you tonight, is kind of an overview of what this is all about, and some of the future moving parts that we'll entail, and we'll take any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Judy, welcome.
Mayor, Council, it's always difficult to follow the town manager. He's much more eloquent than I am. But we have had a couple of great meetings with some regional partners, as the manager has mentioned. I'm going to see if I can advance this without going too far. We've had 2 meetings so far with these entities, the City of Prescott, Yavapai County, the Arizona State Land Department, and the Arizona State Parks and Trails Department. Those state agencies have actually come up here to discuss this project with us, some of the high hitters at the state level, so it's nice to see them supportive of this project. What we're discussing is acquisition of ultimately nearly 5 sections of state land that exist between Prescott Valley and Prescott. You can see the state land sections are highlighted in blue. There's about 11 different parcels. Some of them are oddly shaped. In our discussions, we want to be careful that we didn't strand any sections of state land that makes them less valuable. So that's why you see some of those odd shapes on this map. Obviously, it's going to be expensive, and so we're looking at possibly phasing this project. The first phase would include those 4 sections or 4 parcels in the middle. The parcel on the right is Glassford Hill. You can see our trail, our existing trail that goes up to there. There's some more existing trails proposed. All throughout there, the town owns actually another parcel just to the south of the Glassford summit there. So the framework that we had discussed between the entities was a 3-way split between Prescott, Prescott Valley, and Yavapai County, paying for 25% of that cost. Another 25% would be funded as a direct state allocation through their budget. This is a wish. We will be contacting our representatives, and I believe we already have, to discuss this as an option. That's something they could put in the state budget. There's already an account that exists. The framework exists. They would just need to drop dollars into that account. And the state land department has told us that there's many opportunities for grants to pay for a large chunk of this acquisition, up to 50%. So if you look at it, if we're successful in this arrangement, the town would be paying less than 10% of the actual cost to acquire these parcels. So what are the next steps for this process? One, I know you're going to ask me how much this is going to cost. We don't know. We've hired an appraiser to look at these parcels. We've contracted with an entity called the Planning Center. They're going to help us with some of those things you see on the screen, including a site analysis, visioning, some conceptual planning, and a presentation package. That's something that we could take to market this asset, something that we could use with our application to the State Land Department. And also we'll be working on an intergovernmental agreement between the 3 entities. The town attorney has already sent a draft to the other 2 entities for their review. And that will be coming back before you at some point in the future. The other entities were wanting to move forward sooner rather than later, so you could see that coming before you, possibly the second meeting in March or the first meeting in April. But everybody's been very supportive of this concept. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Ryan, can you go back to the first slide, the overview of the next one? So we are with the trail, and then as you go north, you head towards Jasper. Is that AED? Is Jasper on that right there? Is that
Yes,
entire
that
spot
section
right there?
directly north.
Is all that?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's what.
And in their master plan, they do include dedicating some additional open space along the northern slope of Glassford Hill, so above and beyond what we see on the screen.
Just to add, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that will be part of the conversation with State Land, where they may want to carve out some pieces of that could be developed, which is good for us because it reduces the overall cost in terms of the acquisition purchase. But it allows State Land. They do not want to have remnant pieces where they can't develop and sell it and then develop that. So there will be some continued negotiations on what that looks like of what could be developed by State Land for the future.
And I think this is just an opportunity to just highlight the cooperation between Prescott Valley, and the county, just to make our entire area better. And you look back in the past, I don't know much, if you can put your finger on any cooperation of this magnitude in our area where all 3 organizations have worked together. So it's obviously very early in this process, but it is a great asset to our community. And it's just exciting to know that we're moving forward, and hopefully our residents recognize how important things like this with open space are to this council and the town of Prescott Valley. Vice Mayor, did you have anything?
Can you email us this one that has the legend on the bottom so we can see it in color? And then, is this going to be a state park, or will it qualify as a regional park?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that's one of the discussions that we've been having, potentially turning this into a regional park. So we're in the exploration stage at this point.
We don't have anything like that here, so that's awesome.
Councilwoman?
Are we going to need to look at some increased security measures around those radio towers since the trail's going kind of right there?
Mayor, Councilmember, yes. So we are in those. Those are separate conversations that we're having with state land right now about widening some of the right-of-way that we have around the existing towers and all of our partners that are up on that mountain. So that's a separate conversation. But ultimately, if we were to acquire it, it'd all become part of our overall portfolio.
Is there? You got around these radio towers, okay? Is that fenced in now, or will it be fenced in?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember, yes. There are fences around each of the 3 different sites, and so we're looking at some modification to that fencing to try to increase the distance from where people are hiking, walking, driving up there to the proximity to the actual towers.
Okay. Just pretty critical communications on those towers up there.
Anything else for staff? And just confirming that the proposed Sundog connector is actually would traverse a portion of this property. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. And we've contacted SIMPO to make sure that they are aware of this initial conversation, and we'll want to make sure they're brought into any future conversation for planning purposes.
Excellent. Council, we have anything else? Can't emphasize enough how great this project is, and keep up the great work on pushing forward. Item 2C, USDA NRCS grant for watershed restoration. Mr. Munderloh, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Here tonight to talk about a grant agreement that'll be on your agenda next week for approval, and talk more specifically about what the grant project is about. So as we are aware, give it a minute. Technology and I have kind of a relationship.
There you go. You're all right.
It doesn't matter if I'm in the room, right? So the NRCS, a lot of people are going to be having a good time with all of the acronyms, is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. It was formerly the Soil Conservation Service, formed in the 1930s by the Roosevelt administration to deal with erosion issues, loss of soil, loss of farmland. And they still do that task. They work with ag producers throughout our area and the nation. So they put out a grant opportunity a while back that we found aligned very well with what we wanted to do. And we're talking about the Upper Verde River Watershed Protection Coalition, of which the town is a member, as are all of the other local jurisdictions here. You just saw about regional cooperation on the regional park. We've been working on these watershed issues and water supply issues since 2006 with the coalition. Councilmember Hepperly is the chairman of that coalition, and Councilmember Kinzinger is her alternate on the coalition. So the grant opportunity aligned very well with both the coalition's watershed plan, watershed restoration plan, which is already in effect, and with their goals, of course, to identify, which identified us as a critical resource area, and to support high innovation applications to optimize recharge. And of course, as you're well aware, that fits right in with the town's strategic goal to optimize recharge, to improve recharge across the watershed. So it's a really good fit. But it took a little bit more than to just be a really good fit. So we were one of 9 awards nationally in a very competitive grant market. So we received a notice of award for $2.7 million to basically upscale innovative approaches that we had already put into practice in pilot format. It's been quite frustrating because the program is new, and if you notice the date, we received the notice of grant award a year and a half ago. It has taken our grant manager, not through any lack of effort on her own, to bring this agreement to final fruition for your approval. So, again, this is based off of innovative approaches. The NRCS was so impressed with us that our local office said, hey, we have an opportunity to also get a grant. Can you help us using your techniques, your approaches? And so grant manager and grant writer, Ms. Reifsnyder with Sage Consulting, helped with our resources. The NRCS write a grant through their own agency, and they received an additional $3 million. So we're talking a combined what are we at? $5.7 million, because we did some cool stuff. So the cool stuff, it was something new. These were things you've seen here before, but we're going to talk about them a little bit more. The juniper silt dams, the rainwater harvesting for aquifer recharge program, the juniper chip wattles with and without biochar, that would be juniper biochar, and then biochar as a soil amendment. So the issues, of course, but just to rehash, you know them, but the Prescott Active Management Area obviously is in an overdraft situation. There's more water pumped out than is replenished. Part of the issue is that natural recharge to our aquifer is only 2% of the precipitation. So if we think of the scale of this, the total water budget in the Prescott Active Management Area is somewhere south of 20,000 acre-feet per year. But we receive over 400,000 acre-feet of rainfall and snowfall in an average year. So that is the scale of precipitation that we have compared to what we use. But only 2% of our precipitation actually makes it into the ground. Our aquifer, our watersheds act more like they're a flat rock than a sponge. So the water hits and runs off. Part of the issue has been through loss of grassland. And as you can see by the picture on this slide, after you lose grassland, you lose soil, and you increase runoff and the speed of that runoff. And so our water that we get through our precipitation doesn't stick around long enough to soak in. And I particularly like this photo because you can see the roots in that photo. And the roots in that photo are juniper roots. And juniper trees don't hold back the soil. As you can see, they're ineffective at that. Formerly, that was grassland, and it was invaded by woody species, primarily juniper, and now we've had loss of soil, increased wildland fire hazard because of the woody species. We have a loss of wildlife habitat, and of course, reduced recharge. So we've come up with a few things, the items that I mentioned before, and those necessarily in and of themselves aren't new, aren't necessarily innovative. Juniper's been chopped down for decades across our watershed. We've harvested rainwater and we've put it in buckets and cisterns forever in our history. We create wattles and biochar. None of this is new, but what we did is we combined them in an innovative fashion. By putting things together in a certain way, we were able to create a new use for these things, a new use for juniper that formerly was cut at great expense and left to lay on top of the ground. But when you combine the juniper tree that you cut with a juniper silt dam construction process, so basically you're taking a juniper tree that you're cutting for grassland restoration anyway, and right next to it is a erosional channel. We can package that juniper up, chop it up a little bit more, put it in that erosional channel, lock it in place with some T-post and wire ties, and voila, you've got a juniper silt dam, and you've compounded the effect, like compound interest. The effect of cutting the tree down helps the grassland. The effect of then taking that tree and reducing soil erosion helps increase recharge by at least a factor of 2. All right? It's the same with rainwater harvesting. compounding the rainwater harvesting, which was formerly just, we primarily captured in rain barrels, which is good, but usually we just use it for rain capture stuff. We use it for watering plants. Okay, so it's consumed. But when you compound or combine rainwater harvesting with aquifer recharge, so now we take that water off your rooftop and we direct it underground, and you're able to vastly increase the amount of rainwater you can capture. So that's an idea of what the combination does. And as we've worked on these projects over the years, working with our partners amongst many agencies, as well as our local governments, we've always kept something very critical in mind. And that is, as we're managing basically stormwater, is that we don't impact downstream water rights. That's critical. That's a death knell to a project. As we're trying to manage stormwater, we can't impact somebody's prior appropriative rights downstream. So in every one of these approaches, we've carefully considered that. In one approach, we received an opinion from the Arizona Attorney General's office because we carefully construct those juniper silt dams so that water passes through them. We don't retain the water, we just slow it down so it has time to get back into the ground. So we make our watershed back into a sponge from the flat rock it's become. So with these compounded items, again, we dealt with the appropriative surface water rights. We've also had to deal with other legal requirements. For example, we went through the process and found that harvesting rainwater and putting it underground does not require a dry well permit, as long as you don't touch the ground with it, the surface of the ground. So we're careful with those things. We understand now how our projects interface with things like Army Corps 404 permitting, state land permitting, SHPO permitting. We've gone through these processes. We've done the brain damage, and boy, was it brain damage dealing with some of these agencies. It's cost effective relative to the other types of projects in this scale. So building juniper silt dams, as you can imagine, we're using something that's a discard product anyway, compared to building gabions with concrete and rebar and those types of products, right? So it's cost effective. Very significant here is that we got all of these projects approved as practices by the NRCS. So once it's an approved practice, it's eligible for what are called EQIP funds. So that is the Environmental Quality Incentive Program Fund. These are available to ag producers. And so, in other words, federal money can be used to construct these. So the list goes on. Improved watershed conditions, improved soil health, reduce wildfire risk, improve wildlife habitat, improve grading conditions, and we're recycling natural materials. So these are pretty cool projects. So, talk a little bit about, give you some examples of our pilot projects that we've constructed. The photo on the left there shows a little watershed area that had the juniper trees cut for purposes of restoring the grassland. But as you can see, the channel, the gullies are untreated. So we went in there with some grant money that we received from the Arizona Water Protection Fund, and we processed those already cut trees and put them in the channel. And I know this photo's not great for showing where they are, but I'll show you in a minute what one looks like. So we placed them in the channel, right? Locked them in place, some with rocks, some with T-posts. And, yeah, it doesn't look like much. But, I guess it doesn't matter what it looks like. So, as you can see, the picture on the right there shows how much silt that captured compared to the photo on the left where the gully was formerly. And so when you capture silt, you capture water. Rainwater harvesting systems for aquifer recharge. So rather than putting the water in a cistern and then using it to water plants, and I kind of experiment with one of these at my own house, and it is a pain. Quite frankly, as a working class person, I never remember when the water's there and when to put it on the plants and so on and so forth. It gets algae in the summer times, plugs everything up. Here, this is much less maintenance intensive. So the rainwater goes into an underground, what you might call a French drain or soak-away pit or something like that, and it works its way back into the aquifer. The benefit of this is that you get the virtually unlimited storage potential of the aquifer. So, you know, when your cistern's full and you get that next rainstorm, what do you do with it? Here, it soaks away between each rainstorm. So it goes in the ground. We found we have several of these. We've been running one at a site in Prescott Valley down by the Maverick and Dewey area. It has the potential to replace 25 to 40% of single-family use. So we really targeted initially these for the larger lots, the exempt well type lots that are out there, so that the exempt well community can also participate in reaching safe yield by installing these things. Pretty much everybody already has rain gutters on their homes. Pretty much everybody complains about what happens to their downspouts. You know, that water floods their yard or their lawn. This is relatively cost effective because you just have to dig a pit, basically another leach field, and we're actually experimenting with some newer technology called leaching chambers. So it ends up being less costly than a traditional cistern system and a lot more effective at capturing the rainwater. And like I said, it reduces the first pulse of that stormwater. So here's some of the projects we have done. These have all been grant funded. Our initial one, the adult probation area down there across from the Maverick there. So again, this was installed in about 2018, and it's been plugging away ever since, capturing virtually every drop of rainwater that lands on that long roof there and sticking it in the ground. We just had received additional money from the Department of Water Resources to build some more. So the one on the right there is the Chino Valley Library. Here we're experimenting with building one on a smaller lot footprint. So rather than kind of a long leach field that it eats up quite a bit of yard, this one's deep. So we dug a hole in the ground as deep as the backhoe could reach, filled it up with rock. The material you see there is landscaping fabric. It's permeable, but you want some sort of fabric to keep the roots from penetrating tree roots and that sort of thing. And then when you're done, you still have a piece of ground that you can use. You can park your vehicles on it or whatever. This one has just been completed, the Prescott Rodeo Grounds, and so those yellow half-pipe looking things are the leaching chambers, and you can see another version of it over on the right at the territorial school. So these are a little bit easier to install than refilling a pit full of rock. You don't have as much material to drag in on a dump truck or whatever, and they're pretty cheap. So again, it just provides an area for that stormwater to sit until it soaks back into the ground, and it's underground. It's out of the way. The rodeo grounds, you'll see a lot of this this information. We'll be doing some outreach, so hopefully at the rodeo season, when that starts, you'll see some signs around. Prescott upscaled this over what the grant could provide. They actually put in 2/3 of the cost of this project so they could make it bigger. And so they're taking the rooftop rainwater from the buildings by the rodeo grounds and getting that out of the way so it doesn't drain out into that, the dirt staging area and the dirt parking area where, of course, everybody keeps their livestock during the rodeo. They got their horses and whatnot. And, of course, when the 4th of July, first rain comes, the monsoon rains, it takes all of that, livestock produce, so to speak, and pushes it into the creeks. So it's a good thing. And kind of finally, the juniper wattles with the biochar. So these are very, again, low-tech things. You see the picture of the truck up there on the upper right. Those are straw wattles. Now, we put straw wattles that are required, stormwater protection programs, construction sites. You see these wattles put in everywhere. But those straw wattles, that's an import product. I mean, imported from elsewhere in Arizona, but why aren't we building them here? We have plenty of juniper. We chip that juniper up. We put it in that sock material, and then we get a product that lasts a lot longer. It has better filtration qualities. We can put the biochar in there and use them for mine filtration. for filtration of biological materials such as E. coli or whatever, and increase the water quality in our watersheds as well. So quickly then, the next steps, we'll have the grant agreement in front of you next week. There'll be subsequent agreements. You've already signed one agreement prior to this, and it was necessary for us to move forward in the negotiations on this agreement, and that was a confidentiality agreement. The NRCS is very sensitive about information related to their cooperators, the landowners, and the lessees, the ag producers basically, that we'll be working with. And that is because over time they found that those folks are generally sensitive about their private information, and they don't want to have everything about their business and their lives public knowledge. So we have to be sensitive to that confidentiality. So we'll have a complimentary companion document that'll be coming back around in the future. What's the term for it? The supplemental agreement. Okay. And then we'll work on implementation. And rest assured, the implementation of our grant project will be following the town of Prescott Valley's contracting processes, including public bid. So, if there are any comments.
Great job, John. I think if you were to poll, 10 people out on the streets of Prescott Valley and ask, do you know what steps we're doing or what we're involved in order to conserve our most precious resource, I bet 9 out of 10 would never be able to name one thing on that list that you just presented to us. And I think it's important that we're able to get this information out to the citizens and reassure them that we recognize that, the issues and concerns surrounding water and what we're trying to do to minimize that. So good job to you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
So, John, this is those that are listening, this is a very long-term project.
Correct. The actual grant project is a 5-year long project, and we've been developing these programs, these practices, roughly since 2014 when we finished our watershed plan. So it takes a while, right? We're doing new things. New things aren't necessarily popular or comfortable, especially for government agencies.
And do we have any sort of estimate? I know you referenced the junipers in the wash areas as a +2 savings, and you had numbers for the rainwater. Do we have any thoughts on how we are going to, how much we can put back into the restore the watershed?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that is a difficult question. It's really hard to measure the water volumes that are captured and recharged in these types of situations. However, we have a lot of experience with that when we deal with recharge for our effluent. So, for 20 years now, the town of Prescott Valley has been building berms in the Agua Fria River and stacking up effluent so that it recharges the aquifer. And we do that through a very precise process, a measured process, but we're able to measure it because we always have the water there. We have meters, we have wells, and that sort of thing. So we know it works. But do we know the quantities? No, we don't. It's difficult to measure recharge. It's one of the most difficult things in hydrology is to come up with the recharge number. But it is the best management practice, and we know it works.
Do we have a manufacturer for the juniper socks yet?
No.
I have an idea.
We have people who are interested in bidding on this. We had a manufacturer here. COVID and whatever was going on with his business caused him to go bust and leave the area with his equipment. It was a kind of heartbreaking to see that leave. But we do have other people who are very interested in this. They're aware of this project. They work in the woods. They do wood product stuff. And so they've been asking questions. Hey, what are you doing? Should I buy this equipment? I tell them I can't tell you you're going to get this. You're going to have to bid for the job. But, yeah, people will come.
I have an idea. I'll talk to you offline. But my final question is, and it's twofold. I know you were going to work with our partners that just walked out the door that allow exempt well permits to see if they can make the French drain as part of a building permit requirement. How are we doing on that?
The process was that Yavapai County, Mayor, Vice Mayor, what you're referring to is incorporating the rainwater harvesting, aquifer recharge as part of a normal building process, so that someday in the future somebody coming forward for a building permit would need to put this in or be encouraged or somehow to put these things in. We proposed that to the Yavapai County board member on the coalition, who was at that time uncomfortable until we'd explored more options. At that time, we only had the option, the project that we were operating down by Maverick. Now we've gone and tried different technologies, as you saw on the screen. They're just going into place, just being constructed. So they wanted more demonstration of its effectiveness. So we're continuing. It's on our list.
Thank you.
Councilwoman?
Thank you, John. You know I've heard all of this before, but I'll listen to it every time that you want to talk about it because I love it. And I just really want to point out the innovations and the practices are something that we can bring to the Prescott AMA, but the watershed, Prescott Valley and our partners in the coalition are working as stewards to protect that watershed that is beneficial to the entire county, including on the other side of the mountain, because it's the watershed for the Verde River, and then which then eventually flows to the Salt River, which is vital to the state and our neighbors to the south as well. And so this work it can't be stated enough how important it is, not just to Chino Valley or Prescott Valley, but to, basically from here all the way down to the border. It's huge. So thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Munderloh? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving on, microtransit update. Mr. Rodriguez, welcome.
Bring it back down here. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Wanted to provide you with a microtransit update. So some things that are going to come up.
Point it to the laptop.
So I just want to provide you with an update on the transit system name, the branding, some microtransit services RFPs, and the final timeline. So as you know, we conducted a survey, and the survey had the first survey had a kind of slew of questions, and then this was kind of the part 2 survey that we conducted in February. And it was completed February 28th, just a little bit ago. And so the final 2 questions were, what name would you choose for the transit system? And then what logo style do you prefer? And what we came up with was, or the results that we got was the Yavaline. And so we're very excited for this transit system name. And you'll see that on your resolution here in the March 24th Town Council meeting for your approval. But yeah, we're very excited, and along with that, we wanted to just provide you an update on kind of what we're up to in terms of the transit system branding. So we're seeing that this system will be used for all demographics. We really want to kind of have an all-inclusive view, and give it a good experience, provide a good experience. So with this first slide, we have an example from Boulder, Colorado. You have, they try to match their vehicle with the mountains, obviously accessible via bikes, very colorful type theme. They included some vegetation from the area and even a bunny. So. The next one is San Miguel area regional transit, and again, these are all examples that we're looking at, seeing what we can, the good things that we can take away from each of these examples. So this one's from San Miguel Area Regional Transit. It's called the SMART. That was very smart of them, and they kind of, are gearing their system toward, here in this case, some students. But in reality, this transit system provides a lot of rural connectivity, and it's really nice to see how they've included all their colors of their area into, their vehicles. So it's very sharp. Here we have another example from Winter Park, Colorado. It's called the Lift. This is a ski town, and so it was a very appropriate name to be called the Lift. The triangles that you see are kind of, in a way, mountain peaks. And again, the system is for all trip purposes. So. And here we have another example from Asheville, North Carolina. They are called the ART. So Asheville Redefines Transit is their name, which is very interesting. But you can see throughout, their brochure, their passes, even their bus stop, that there's some continuity there. And just to give it that feel of, hey, this is redefining transit. And so those are some things that we're looking toward. And hopefully here, again, in the later town council meeting, we'll go through that final branding, the style, and how that's all going to kind of come together. So the next piece here is we're looking at some upcoming RFPs for award. We have the microtransit software. Then upcoming is our operations and oversight, and then the development of some transit plans and programs that we need to have in place, such as safety, asset management, and civil rights program. And then finally, here we have our implementation timeline. So here we have that green star. We're at that level right now. So we've purchased our vehicles. Hopefully here, now that we're going to complete our branding, we're going to wrap them. Again, with the styles that we're working with. The RFP process is mentioned with those 3 RFPs, and now we're moving forward with the award and the branding, and then also looking toward, more so into the summer, how we're going to have onboarding of new contractors, coordination with the taxi and livery companies, as you all requested, and doing some testing with our software, and then doing some kind of fun activities, such as inauguration of our transit system, showing you all what the vehicles are going to look like, what the system's going to look like, and then obviously doing some more marketing. So that's upcoming, and then we're looking late summer microtransit service implementation, most likely in August. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of completes my quick microtransit update. Do you all have any questions?
Any questions, comments for Mr. Rodriguez?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick question. Last time we met, you didn't have a vendor. How are we doing on that?
Yeah, so for the software, we have completed that RFP process, so we're good with that. And you'll see in the March 24th meeting how we're going to award them. And then as for the operations piece, we have contacted various vendors to let them know and kind of get them interested, and I think we'll have a good turnout.
Excellent.
At least have a couple of proposals.
Great job,
and
sir.
the service is a little small, so it's, we definitely have to get some attention.
Anything else? Councilwoman.
So word is kind of getting around, so to outside. I mean, obviously, we knew the need, and is what's brought us to this point as well. And then I know from your work in NACOG, probably also you realized that, public transportation is important in small towns and when you have people that are trying to get places and they can't. But I also sit on the board for First Things First, which helps families of young children. And they have seen that as a huge need, and they are so excited. They've just recently heard about this coming online, and they're so excited. So I just wanted to say, good job, keep up the good work.
Excellent. Yeah, and that should be a good organization that we can follow up with and bring along in this ride. A lot of puns today. All right.
Great job, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on, item 2E, Prescott Valley Monument Sign Project, Phase 1. Mr. Davis, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Item I have before you is one of the focus of one of our strategic plan goals, which is a prosperous community and a diversified community bolstered by tourism. So what I wanted to talk to you tonight is our long-term effort to put in some monument signs on our gateway to Prescott Valley, which first would be Highway 69. This has been a long-term goal of, I think, past councils in addition to staff. I looked at my file today, and it goes back to 2014. We actually sent a letter to ADOT. And we had lots of work before then to say, hey, we'd really like to have some monument signs. The answer was a lot of no's. We kept advocating for it, and we finally got the yes. So what I wanted to present to you tonight was what we've actually zeroed in on and got a few presentation slides I'd like to show you of what we would like to do. What you're seeing up here is a 2002 study of what was implemented by a council at the time, back in 2002. It was, I can get the slide to advance. It was actually the Prescott. Back where I wanted to be. So this was a 2002 study commissioned for the town of Prescott Valley, of the Prescott Valley Parkway redevelopment plan. If I can go back. You can see the concept would come out here on page number 26 with some monument signage, and you can see the two, palettes there with the color palette and actually the shapes. You can see, and many of these have been implemented throughout the core of the town here, of our economic center. And the one we're going to focus on tonight is what I call the pylon sign, is the lower one there, is one we'd like to implement along Highway 69 because it came out of the study. So we'll talk about the other curved arch sign later on. But what we're going to do is talk about some of the concepts and using this particular inspiration from this pylon sign that was in the study that we've built many monuments around Prescott Valley since that time. Of course, just want to show the slide. The inspiration has really come from the Fitzmaurice ruins. As you can see, that slide would show the pylon sign. This is the ruins, and this is a picture that was taken of some of the existing ruins. So that's where the artistry comes from, or I guess the flavor of what we'd like to see for our community. So this is the inspiration that really we started with. And we're going. There we go. What I wanted to show, here's many signs that have, as you can see, around the core of the town economic center. A lot of this particular sign, monument signs, have been implemented and in place today. The one I like to most focus on, you see the one on the top. We did that, what's it been, 3 or 4 years ago at the corner of the library. So you can see the pylon and the monument sign on each side. Of course, on these long banner signs, that's about 25 feet long, about 5 feet tall. So you can see the color palette there in addition to some of the particular shapes and what's been implemented. But each one of these signs is what we really want to get that palette right and everything being equal and consistent throughout the downtown. Next slide. This is what we implemented here. I got a lot of help from our other members of our team here at the town. This is actually what we did in the field was we took that rendition, and through some of the engineering we had through Dave and Associates, we wanted to just give a sense of scale of what this particular sign would look like along Highway 69. This is actually at the gateway there at Victorian Estates. We got another slide at the other one. We're planning 2 locations, one at Victorian Estates, the other one at Highway 69 at basically our incorporated limits. So what you're looking at here is actually our trial. So actually Larry Prentice and I, we got with Heidi, and we actually printed on our large computer plotters what this might look like in the field. And actually, this was a trial. We wanted to see this size here was about 8 by 8 by about 12 feet tall. And we went out and looked at it in the field, and we found out that is way too small for the perspective. I think what I handed out here, it's not part of the presentation on the slides, but we just got it here about 5 o'clock. Wanted to make sure we got it to you, but you're looking at what we actually had to implement as a result of our field work. We've actually had to, if I remember right, it's about a 13-foot base, and it's going to be about 20 feet tall. Seems very big, but that's the size it needs to give you that target that you want to see, because we want to make sure we can target that particular sign. The good benchmark is the existing sign that we put up many years ago that says "Welcome to Prescott Valley" with the current logo we have. That's the sense of scale we need to have. So that's what we've done some trial, and we've gone back to the drawing board, so to speak, to get this sign right. But this is actually what that sign will look like in the field, and that's what we wanted to get council's comments on, is what we think of this particular design. Important to note, this is just the engineer's drawing of where the sign would go. It's on a real nice little hillside tucked up against the wall and actually behind some guardrails. So we like this location. It'll be far enough away from the traveled way, have great target value, be the right size to where this will be on the Victorian Estate side.
Mr. Davis, if I can just interrupt, I see where it says tunnel under block wall for conduit. This will be lit up?
Yes, if I added that, that's one of the nice advantages of putting it within. We've got some existing development. It will be lit, and actually electricity is very economical, and we've already got with APS, and they've finished the design, so we're very much ready to go and done a lot of the work. We've actually gotten with ADOT, and they've already preliminarily approved a lot of our conceptual plans and said, yeah, we can do that. Just get us the final plans. We'll get that encroachment permit. So done a lot of the past legwork and timelines to get to the point we are here. This would be the companion sign out at Highway 169, and you can see this would be right off the Highway 169 area. The sign we've talked about, the existing Welcome to Prescott Valley signs, you can see the scale of that. That's really what we're looking at in order to put this particular sign in place. But just companion sign and what you can see there. I really like this drawing here because what we're able to do is, I think council's aware, in fact I heard today I was at a CYMPO meeting, ADOT has actually let out the design for the 169 roundabout, so we actually have 15% conceptual development concept report plans, but we're able to inscribe those into the particular drawings to show that we've got this long-term planning if we're able to move forward with the monument sign, what it would look like when the roundabout will probably come in the next 2 or 3 years. So once again, planning can do very well with our conceptuals and computer-aided drawings to where that particular sign will look like in the future when the roundabout goes in. But right now it would be at that same signalized intersection. But we've done all the work too. Likewise, with the electrical conduit, we've incorporated in the current plans there for that development at the corner, so it's going to work very well with all that current development and be there for a long time. And what I want to get to, we also have the same conceptual plan of that we would love to put a gateway. Manager Gilbert Davidson and I have talked a lot. The vision would be to have an arch sign into, on Glassford Hill Road right off of Highway 69. So we've actually looked and proposing it for the next fiscal year's budget to use this other concept to have this arch sign over Glassford Hill Road. So you can see right out of that same exhibit, we just whited out the bottom pylon sign, but this is that arch sign that you saw in the other exhibits that's been incorporated very much throughout the community. And as usual, just like to show this, of course, it was interesting to see at the beginning of the presentation where this was used as a background, but here's that arch sign in place now at the famed corporate center there, but this is part of what we want to incorporate and have that same a palette throughout the downtown area. And I guess just to go back to the particular drawings they've just handed out, you can see the scale of the drawing. We've actually upgraded a little bit to where the top we wanted to put on is very much that ribbed light green painted top. So the last drawing you got, we just got it, about 30 minutes before council, but just wanted to make sure you saw that. That's more of the most updated and the size we anticipate. But with that, that concludes my presentation of what we've got to present, but love to hear any comments that the council would have.
Mr. Davis, thank you. I think one of the things, if we're going to be heading down this road of the rebranding, of course we're going to have the different logo. That's a no-brainer. But also, I see on the paper form that you gave us, it says, "Welcome to Prescott Valley, please drive safely." I think this would be giving us an opportunity to maybe use our motto and not just have "please drive safely." I mean, people aren't like, "Oh, good thing I saw that, I'm going to drive safe now." No, I think this is a chance to make Prescott Valley, and dive into our own identity at that point. It's just my thought in regards to that. It definitely would be better than the metal sign we have or the older age signs that we have. So,
and that's a good comment, Mayor, because I noticed it myself when we got it. I said, well, where did please drive safely? It wasn't on the other conceptual drawings.
Exactly.
And, we were just transferring things over, and that's what, it gives you a look and say, well, let's delete that. Well, I like the motto idea, and that's what we could definitely incorporate into it. And that's Prescott Valley.
And of course, I mean, ultimately what staff and the rest of council decide, but something other than just a driving instruction of please drive safely, I think would be better. Councilwoman?
Is there any kind of landscaping or paver work at the base of it planned? Because that's one, when the signs that you have as examples, like the Civic Center sign is beautiful, but I think so much of what adds to it is that paver work that leads right up to it. And so to see this just sitting on like a bunch of weeds is a little bit harder to visualize.
And that's a good comment. We haven't looked at incorporating water. We're in the neighborhood. It's just a cost. So at this point in time, we're doing our estimates, but certainly we can incorporate and get some comments back. But yes, what type of small shrubs would be nice and maintenance? That's a good comment.
Vice Mayor, did you have anything? No.
Can we do solar at all? Norm? Solar and electricity, or electricity or solar that goes to a battery?
And on that, is 169 going to be lighted as well?
Yes, both locations do have easy access. So
back to the Vice Mayor.
I guess the technology was solar for small lights. I know they call them the Malibu lights. Those work. This is one that I guess we want to make sure it works every day, day in, day out. A lot of times when you do have accessibility to electric, it does give you that particular service level you're looking for. Not to say you can't. I do know a lot of our batteries, they're expensive. Solar is not particularly always cheapest in capital cost and actually long-term maintenance. Can't answer that with great confidence, but typically if you can have it hooked up to electric service for your service, it's much better. But I'll look into it, Vice Mayor, to see what we can do about solar.
Anything else for Mr. Davis?
I just wanted to confirm, I may have been looking at something or thinking of something when you were discussing the Highway 169 69 roundabout. This would go inside the roundabout as the decoration? Is that what you're, no? Or is it going to be?
Maybe go back to that slide for the councilwoman.
That's the slide we want. So as you can see, we actually have it 30 feet off of the edge of the road. ADOT, the nice thing about that is we've done a lot of that work. It's really a clear zone of 30 feet. They really don't have as much concern if you stay in that. So that's one of our engineering criteria. So that's where it works very, very well to accommodate what our needs are, get out of the way of any particular errant vehicle or maintenance they got to do, but definitely get the target value we want for the sign.
Okay, very good. And then that leaves open the option of putting some artistic bronze, whatever, in the middle of that roundabout like they have. Okay, very good. Thank you.
I guess at this point, we do have budget funding this current FY 21-22 year. I guess I'm just looking for council's direction, whether we could bring concepts back or if we'd like to go ahead and move to send it out for bid and contractor response. We will get shop drawings in, but I do know we're looking at getting our our new logo put in and the motto. Great point, but this could really showcase, if we're looking at that towards the end of the month, if we can make a decision, this could really probably around June, we could say, yes, new logo, motto, here we are with our monument signs. I'd just like to get some council input on that too.
I think that would be very possible. I think you should definitely proceed with that, because what it says on the sign isn't going to make much of a difference on the bid process. So if we just start that process, I think it'll be good, and then fill in the details as we proceed further, I believe.
I could work with Manager Davidson to see what we can do with the shrubs incorporated, but other thing we can do is just get started. You can always enhance what was out there, just get something in place and get that, pizzazz, so to speak.
Yeah, I believe on a sign of this magnitude and within the budget, pavers, like Councilwoman Hepperly mentioned, isn't going to break the budget on this, I think. So that's definitely what we need to be looking for.
We'll proceed, and we'll go ahead and get the plans done up and get a contract timeline and project timeline going. And it probably won't get it all done this budget year, but we can appropriate more money next year to make sure we can finish it.
Thank you, sir. Now moving on. Item G, summer 2022 street. Item F, Prescott Valley Crosswalk Striping Project, Phase 1. Mr. Davis.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council, and Vice Mayor and Council. This next item is one of our more focused areas of a quality of life. We wanted to look at our enhancing our public safety and connectivity of crosswalks, and this has been a strategic goal that we were able to focus on as staff, and we were able to use some of our existing study money that we have and commission a town-wide safety study to look at enhancing our pedestrian mobility around Prescott Valley. So what we did was we got the consultant on board, and we actually conducted a public meeting back in October. So we were able to reach out to our residents and say, you live in the community, you know where you want to be. Where could we enhance our pedestrian mobility and have that capability? So we took the public comment back in October. We gave it back to the consultant and came up with the particular study that was, let me call the date, it was, yes, in January. We were able to compile all the data, do the engineering evaluation, and basically the safety studies to make sure with all these particular crosswalks that we're meeting all our design standards and good safety criteria and looking at the whole area holistically. So if I can pull up. So the good news is that there is some existing areas for crosswalks that we can implement pretty much immediately. What Larry's going to pull up is an exhibit we've completed to look at where these particular crosswalk recommendations have landed, and actually an interactive map that can actually show where all of them are. In short, what the study did in synopsis was it came up with two tiers. Basically was ones that could be implemented currently, in addition to some crosswalks that were existing that the safety consultant recommended be removed. There was only a couple of those. But in addition, from the public comment, there was quite a few crosswalk areas that the consultant recommended we don't put painted lines. It's important to point out to council, anytime you have an intersection of roads, in Arizona law says there's a crosswalk whether marked or not, and pedestrians have the right of way. But there is criteria and recommendations on how often you stripe them to make sure you call focus to the ones that are probably more heavily used, to make sure you've got consistency across the whole town too. What I particularly enjoyed to rest with staff was be able to take a look at the whole town, where we've grown over the last few years, some of the old, the new, and make sure we have a comprehensive study to look at safety. So as we point out, there's actually 41 locations that we can implement immediately to put in the signage that's required, in addition to painting the new crosswalks to have that visibility. There's two types of crosswalks too. Some of them just get the bars that I think we're used to, but actually some are going to be what's called high visibility. They have the extra paint, and a lot of those can be on high trip areas that the consultant's recommendation was to call attention. What Larry can pull up too is this interactive map. We'd like to put it on our website because residents can actually go to the particular site and look and see what's going to be implemented at a particular site. So I think Larry's zoomed in right there of a recommendation for a painted crosswalk there at the frontage road and near Pav Way. As you can see where some of these are, and even some of the residential areas. I know some of our multi-use paths are very popular in crossing of streets. You can see Larry panning around, and by using the wheel on the mouse, you can actually look at these particular areas and see where it's going to be implemented. So we've actually been able to develop construction plans in the field, and we've got those ready, and we can actually ready to deliver this particular project this current budget year. Did want to make mention too, there are some Tier B as a result of the public comment that the consultant says we need to look at some other different criteria, traffic counts, roadway geometry and the like, so that we need to do another study next budget year if we can get appropriated to look at some of the others that we want to make sure we have good safety and that we are implementing a common application for crosswalks throughout Prescott Valley. So actually the Tier B could be done next year. There's about 25 there.
I'm sorry, sir. Just it looks like, can you just span out, please? So we're looking at Pronghorn Ranch right there. Is that where we're at?
Correct.
Looks like we're going to be pretty busy up there, huh?
Absolutely. And we looked at that in depth because, Pronghorn Ranch does have that multi-use path on the east side, and they have a lot of connectivity to the places on the west side. So you can see, where those goes. In fact, if Larry pans in, you can see that connectivity that you can have that's already there to the multi-use path. So the consultant's recommendation was to put, marked crosswalks at each one of those.
Great.
And it's important to note, doesn't mean if you look off to where that other intersection is that there is, the pedestrian does have the right-of-way, but it's not the recommendation to put crosswalks just everywhere, but at good visible points throughout the system. But yes, you can see quite a few go in along Antelope Meadows Drive to accommodate that particular multi-use path system there and the access across that people use on the west side.
Mr. Prentice, can you head over to Stone Ridge? And just kind of move around, so hopefully our viewers from home will be able to see what we have going on there in Stone Ridge as well. So.
And what's important to note, too, the consultant did look at existing locations just to evaluate those. So we had a couple they wanted to take out, but even some of the existing ones said they're good, they're incorporated, they've been noted, because what's important, too, is any inventories to make sure that we have a good inventory so that when we do have to perform periodic maintenance, typically stripe once a year. We would add this to our striping program to make sure, you're right, if we've got 60 marked crossings, that we need to make sure those get painted and, part of our operation and maintenance program. So they did look at all crosswalks townwide. That was the real value of this study, was to look townwide to make sure we were consistent throughout.
Mr. Davis,
the best mobility we can.
Did they suggest that we remove, we have a crosswalk, or we had a crosswalk here at Civic Circle or Scoop Boulevard for the entrance coming in between the police department and Town Hall. There was one. You can kind of see the remnants of it. Will that be, because it's a very used...
Was that at our driveway entrance, or was that across?
At our driveway entrance. And I just didn't know if that was something that, obviously it's private property, we recognize that, but that you see a lot of people walking around there. So not the police entrance, but the next entrance up, there was a crosswalk at some point, and now we no longer have that. You can almost see it right there, little remnants there.
That's a good suggestion. We can have them weigh that out. So this first brush was to look at other locations.
Due to the number of people that we have walking constantly around our campus, I think it would be good. But if obviously if you recommended to not have it, then we'd go with the recommendation. But if that wasn't discussed, I think it's something we should at least consider, please.
Good comment. We'll make sure it gets incorporated.
Vice Mayor?
I think Kendall was first.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
That's okay. I just was wondering, too, is this like a phosphorescent type paint or something that's really highly reflective at night when you're having on your lights?
Well, it'd be industry standard, so all of our pavement markings does have glass beads in it. That's why it does look like it's plugged in maybe when your lights hit it. So it's, once again, we always want to look at good economies, but a lot of your clear recycled glass, if you wonder where it goes, that's recycled glass gets put into glass beads. And you can see it, it's very fine glass, but they do put it in with the paint. So to answer your question, yes, it'll have reflective capability.
And Mr. Prentice, while Vice Mayor is asking a question, can you head over to Granville as well and pan around over there? Vice Mayor?
So, Norm, a couple questions. The $75,000 that's in this current budget includes both the paint and their recommended signage, either install or remove.
Correct. We've got good level of confidence with this, even in this current accelerated.
Sounds terribly affordable to me.
Very affordable.
Okay. And how soon, since it's in this year's budget? Soon?
In this year's budget, we would like to think we can get them implemented by June 15th.
And then there was some comments. We keep getting those comments about Pronghorn. Larry, that intersection of Antelope and Pronghorn needing a four-way stop. We've already determined that that doesn't meet warrants, right? And that's why we put in the free right, because those were in the comments. And then there was also another comment about where we put in the Parkview Road. Is there something over there, Larry?
It was Knollwood. I think we had some comment too.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so we are addressing that comment. Very good. And then for the 23 in the Tier B, we have to put that in the budget for next year.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
We'll be able to see the Tier B map?
Well, we hadn't incorporated those yet because we need to study. We'd hate to put it on a map, and that may give the indication that they're being implemented. So we haven't worked there yet. But once again, we'll probably add more to the Tier B. As always with our traffic safety, we get the comments about, hey, have you looked at the intersection? Could we look at the warrants for maybe a four-way stop? We look at that constantly with our traffic professionals to make sure we address those. And with any crashes, we stay in touch with the police department to find out where can we enhance safety, and if there's options and opportunities there to do that.
I'm glad.
To answer
I'm glad I'm glad the mayor asked for Granville, because we've gotten, I know Planning and Zoning has gotten a lot of comments there, and I know we have too. So that's really awesome. We get one in Quailwood where we really need it, so I'm excited about that. Are we going to amend our standards for new developments to meet these requirements when somebody goes in, they implement it?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, are you referring through the general plan, some updates to our street standards and then future corridor? Yes, so all of those are going to be updated as part of the approval that will be coming back to P&Z, to the council, and then ultimately to the public in the fall.
And it'll show crosswalks on it.
We won't have a specific crosswalk plan, but the standard of what our streetscapes will look like will be included.
Thank you.
If I could comment, Vice Mayor, it's nice when every once in a while we do like to tune up, due to the expansive growth we have, that every 10, 15 years it's nice to tune up these general plans and make sure that any new criteria comes into play. We want to make sure we're attentive to that, and plus just make sure you look at the whole system where we've grown to make sure we're safe everywhere.
Could you enlarge the Spouse Drive area? I know we have a lot of walkers in that central part of town, and around Tonto and Minor and down toward Viewpoint, and they're always complaining they're having to, and I know they're digging new ditches, enlarging them for the flood. We had a huge flood down in that area during the last big rain, and so the walkers are just having an awful time. And it seems to me that at some point we may have to even have put in four-way stop signs. But so is this going to be part of Tier B, possibly, where they put more crosswalks in that area? Because I know even for myself, when I walk in that area, it's the traffic is just getting so heavy, and it's very difficult for people walking their dogs. And
yeah, Councilman, we can, and that's part of the Tier B. As we said, there's 23 noted in this January 6th study, but absolutely we're always taking comments, and that's what the consultant can evaluate, where there's comment back that people would like to see enhanced crosswalk and pedestrian.
I think one of the things we need to focus on, Mr. Davis, is wherever there were crosswalks, we need to make sure that those somehow fall into our schedule at some point, because we've had crosswalks over just at Spouse and Viewpoint, four-way there, that are now disappearing slowly. And I think it's something that if they're not brought up in the study, we still need to recognize that we had crosswalks there, and as well as over on Santa Fe Parkway. I hear constantly from the residents of Granville how we've had crosswalks over there, and they've slowly been vanishing. So we need to figure out where that happy place is.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because what you look at is when a professional looks at it, the guidance has flexibility.
Sure.
When these consultants, they say they always err on the side of caution, they overpaint. You need to be careful, too, that there's a threshold to where you got to look at the whole holistically. So a good example was the current Viewpoint project we got done with a year ago. It's the consultant's recommendations that the crosswalks that were put in at Verde Vista, and what's the next one? Alva Fria? His recommendations to take them out. No, Calle Santa Cruz, I'm sorry, it's Verde Vista and Calle Santa Cruz. They were in. There's a good example of where you look at the whole system and said, it's a recommendation. Keep in mind, there was recommendations that basically 20% of the public recommendations wasn't the consultant's recommendations to stripe them. And some of them taken out was just due to safety, because we want to make sure we have that target in those high visible areas. So they're all evaluated. It's a good point, Mayor, but
and I'm totally fine with that. If they recommend that, hey, this is not what we need, but that the four-way over there at Santa Fe by the dog park is a constant concern of our residents in the Granville area, and we need to figure out what that looks like in order to make things successful and safe for them. So,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
If I could just add, all of those are negotiable things. So
that's all I need to know. That's it. Perfect. If it's not the Bible that we're looking at, it's all set in stone. If we can have that discussion before it's finalized, I think it's really something important. And I recognize that the person doing the study, they're new to Prescott Valley. They don't know what we're hearing every day. They don't know where the foot traffic is. And by just looking at the four corners of this screen, they might not know that. So knowing that it's flexible, that's all I need to know. Thank you, sir.
I did want to comment about the project timeline. We do have budget available this year, so we could move forward this particular, maybe I did say that by the end of the month we could close bids, get a contractor on board about mid-April, and we look for the next 30 or 60 days. So that's something we want to move forward with. We'll continue on moving forward.
Norm, you did a fabulous job on this, and Lee Engineering did a great job. It's very thorough, and I want to give a shout out to the 50 people that attended that meeting. That's impressive.
Thank you. It goes to show how important crosswalks are to the community. I mean, to have a meeting where 50 people show up and want to give their ideas, that says a lot about how important it is to our residents. So this is a great project, long overdue, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm going to put a plug in. The term we use in transportation is multimodal. So yes, roadways seem to get a lot of the focus, but you heard Pedro talk earlier tonight about transit. That's your multimodal. Not everyone has a vehicle. In addition to whether it's your trip choice to exercise a little bit or you can't afford a vehicle, the pedestrian way, we want to accommodate all modes of transportation, and they all work together. So you'll hear me use the terms our transportation corridors, and we want to accommodate all those multimodal functions, not just the asphalt, which is my next item, but also the adjacent pedestrian ways and transit. It's all part of our transportation system.
All right, moving on to item 2G, Summer 2022 Street Maintenance Program. Mr. Davis.
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council, this item is come to you every year. I come to Council and talk about our every year we do a maintenance treatment to our roadways, and we have this revolving program to make sure that we provide a maintenance treatment. And what we are graced with was in 2016, we were absolutely implemented here in Prescott Valley with the support of our resident half-cent sales tax for maintenance. We've been spending $2 million a year on enhanced maintenance, and you can see the difference. Aggregately, that's about $12 million we've invested, and you've heard presentations in the past. You can see our service level is very much enhanced, and actually what we're happy to report is the industry standard says you should be maintaining your pavements anywhere from, depending on the pavement treatment you use, anywhere from 5 to 7 years. We're at a 7-year. We actually went from a 12-year, enhanced our pavement significantly, not only with potholes and some localized widening we've presented, but also we're on a maintenance cycle that's recommended by the people for pavements. So we're at the point now we can look at a much better, higher service level standard that we can deliver to residents. And we've been hearing from our residents, they don't like the most economical means, and that's a chip seal. So we've heard lots of feedback from residents say, is there an alternative method? Sure there is. They're a little more expensive, but once again, you get that converse, extra life cycle. So a chip seal lasts, per industry standard, about 5 to 7 years. The next step up can be a microsurface. You pay a little more for it, but you can get anywhere from about 7 to 10 years. A little more popular with the public because the aggregate doesn't get dislodged as much. It's a game of economy, but actually it's a application to where it's actually made within a truck and laid out in a slurry seal and the like, but also has a rough surface, so it meets our elevation requirements when we have snow and ice, so we have a rough road surface. What you look at here is typical. We've done the last bunch of years is our maintenance life cycle, and you can see these roads were the ones done last, and so this is staff's recommendation that we would like to put a maintenance course. We've worked over the last year when you see us talk about crack seal application and doing edge patching and like, all part of our maintenance to get our capstone project, which is to provide a maintenance course. What staff is recommending here, you can see in the particular caption there, is with some industry input. We did have a summit with some of the industry experts out there and asked them, hey, how's Prescott Valley doing? They say, well, it's nice you've got a funding source. You're pretty well caught up. You could incorporate a microservice seal or slurry seals, and actually it's an industry standard, so we can implement it. What you're seeing in the legend there is what staff's recommendation is if, with resident support of, moving away from chip seals, is what we call a micro seal. And in the residential streets, a slurry seal is a little more popular, not quite as rough. But you can see our staff's recommendation is The Quailwood area is actually on the next pavement life cycle for maintenance treatment. We've done a lot of crack sealing and patching in there, and you can see some of our major arterials that we've done significant work. So it'd be staff's recommendation if we move forward with micro seal. We've run the numbers of what the industry cost would be, and we're looking at about $1.8 million in order to do this particular program. To show you what the micro seal looks like, I got this off the internet. You can tell this isn't Prescott Valley, but it is close by. But you can see that's what a microservice seal. You can see the truck's a little different from the chip seal applications you use, but once again, you can see the truck in front that's got the aggregate, and that's actually mixed within a pug inside the vehicle, and you can see it sends it out in a slurry type of application, and it's got the squeegees and the like, but it does provide that maintenance surface and protects our pavement. What's most important, it's like painting your house or anything, you provide that maintenance treatment on the top of your engineered pavement, you're going to preserve that investment you've made, and this is another maintenance treatment we can perform.
Mr. Davis, do our local contractors, do they offer this service, or would it, when we open this up for bid, will it be other?
No, not currently, no. So typically, Earth Resources has always been pretty competitive. When chip seal need to do is that's part of their business model. But I would imagine if we start offering this, it's that's what Free Enterprise System can do. I would imagine any contractor can look at it. Industry partners said, there's all kinds of different maintenance treatments. So you've got chip sealers, you've got the slurry sealers, you've got the micro seal sealers. But they've let me know that there's good competition out there. If we move on our continued timeline that staff recommends, we can get this out early, make sure we have a local aggregate source, but then they can bring the equipment and the manpower. So to answer your question, nobody currently locally of our 3 or 4 large general contractors do this.
So the city of Prescott doesn't offer a slurry seal like this?
They've done some slurry seal there. I've done some research. I know ADOT just got done with a slurry seal a couple of years ago, actually in the Dewey area. Okay. So we've looked at it as staff to make sure at this elevation, it does make a difference in Arizona. Micro seal has performed well. In fact, just last summer, ADOT did a big job on 89. I've been in contact with some of my ADOT partners, and they said, yeah, it's performed well. They did, I think, about 15 miles up near Paulden. So hard to tell when you're driving by, but it's a much better accepted product for as far as the aggregate doesn't get as dislodged. Here's a good example we have here of what it looks like when you've providing a second pass.
Excellent.
So it is something that's been done locally.
Councilwoman.
So the local companies probably, because like you said, this is a different truck, so they just don't have the truck. But if this, obviously we're a big contract, so if they wanted to be competitive in the future, they just have to go buy the truck, right? And then they can, I don't want to say just, because I'm sure that there's a cost, but that's the.
What's interesting is you put on a big operation like this is very big. We're pretty robust with a couple $1 million. You'll find just about every trucking company around is working on this chip seal. So you may see the vendor come in that has this truck, and you got to keep that busy pretty effectively. It'd be tough maybe for a local guy if he doesn't do it day in, day out all year long. They may say, great, we bring up the truck, a couple of guys to run it. We need your trucks to bring the aggregate from our local aggregate sources. So not necessarily. I know Earth Resources well. They basically have a chip seal operation that we only keep them busy 3 weeks a year. They work six months a year all around here. So that's the market they look in. But I know they got into even the oil hauling business, the tanker trucks, and they were hauling for other companies. It's all on who's marketing and who can provide the work. But I know Earth Resources, their tanker trucks work for a lot of contractors hauling raw oil to feed a particular operation. So it's how they put it together and look at the best economy.
Excellent.
And then the other, with chip seal, I know it can be confusing for residents because it's several steps over a week or more. This looks like it's kind of more just, gets laid out almost immediately.
Yeah, it depends on the maintenance application. Chip seal you can drive on sooner. What we'll need to make sure we let residents know is typically you need about a half a day to a day of cure. A full day for like the slurry we talked about in the residential areas. Really not a problem. You just get residents notified. You do half the street one day. Let them know for that day you got to park across the street. You can walk on it, but they don't want traffic on it. So it takes a little more time to cure. But then again, you get that longer service life and some of the particular cutback oils that need to cure. And really not a problem. So if you do even a major road, let's say we looked at a Glasswood Hill Road for microseal, there's techniques that you can use to pay a little more to get it closer to traffic within an hour or two. And it's a game of money, but I think it's very reasonable to say half a day is well within reason on some of these roads.
Right. So once it's laid, it takes a little bit longer before you can drive on it. But then once you're driving on it, it's done. It's not
done.
like that step where it's just like super gravelly and then the tar and stuff.
Mr. Davis, I don't know if you even realize how happy residents are going to be when they find out that we are just exploring different options with this.
And it's good feedback.
I'm sure this council has heard numerous times whenever chip seal starts to come into their neighborhoods on the challenges that those residents face. So
I did have one more item,
excited.
if I could, Mayor, if I jump in, was we've also heard too higher service levels. We talked about we're really caught up now. We put a lot of our investment into chip seals to get caught up and get our roads back to historic widths in the core. This is a good opportunity that we've heard from lots of residents. Well, you haven't raised your manhole lids, and we say we know. And what you're looking at here is with GIS help, and Larry Prentice has really showed some focus here. We went out and looked at where we can provide that opportunity and raise all those manhole lids. So that's a cost, but it's what our residents have desired. So what you're looking at here is basically I think we're up to 192. But you can see all the little yellow circles there. Those are actually our major arterials. You probably recognize them well. It's Robert and Navajo, and even some of the ones in our subdivisions, viewpoints, Groucho Mountain Drives. We've heard those resident input, said, well, it hasn't been something we've been able to provide, but we're going to this year. If I went back to that original drawing of the $2 million we want to invest, then $1.8 million goes into the slurry seals to maintain the life cycle, but we would like to put $200,000 into raising up about 200 manholes on our major arterials. This would be something we could implement moving forward to say, once we do the major arterials, how about some of the secondary roads where they're a problem, and we can address those. So this would be a staff's recommendation too. So if we can move forward with that, we'd like to get this on a timeline that we can make a recommendation to get it bid out, and then we can look to start with the new budget year, but bring it to council in late May and say we're queued up with the new budget to get started.
No, this is excellent. And Mr. Davis, can you please get this picture sent over to our emails as well, please? What we're looking at on the screen, can that come over to us in a PDF? Thank you.
You just want this one, or you want the first one, or all of them?
I'll take them both. Whatever you have anything displayed, I'll take it all.
Okay, for the maintenance, we'll get that sent.
Please. Yes, along with maintenance. Thank you. Council, we have anything else for Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Folks, if we don't have anything else, it is time to call it a night. Appreciate everyone coming out. Have a great night.